I think it defines whether he's got a place in the sport anymore, if I'm totally honest.
These opponents, to me, don't give us any indication, and Dillian Whyte looks like a spent force now, that Anthony Joshua is going to be anywhere near doing anything besides printing some more money for the Anthony Joshua Express. We're back. Talk Boxing's back. Simon Jordan, Spencer Oliver. Been a while. How are you?
Yeah, you know what, Simon? Really good. Looking forward to a mammoth 2023. Really am. We've got some massive shows coming up. Make sure you guys subscribe to the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel because, yeah, we've got a lot of stuff on.
Not only that, we've also got an additional show, which is the question and answer show, where we take your brilliant questions and answer them on a separate show. But here we are, episode 9. As we've said, lot's gone on, a lot to talk about. But let's get on with this week's show. Okay, as I said, Spence, there's a lot going on, but what's coming up imminently is a fight that both you and I are going to on Saturday, one I'm really looking forward to, which is obviously Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith. How do you see this fight shaping up?
It's a tough one to call this, Simon. You know, I think both guys' careers are running parallel. They're at that stage of their career that a loss is not just damaging, I think it's a career ender. I really do. I think that, you know, they're both at that stage where they need the win. The win takes them on to box possibly for a world title. Triple G's name's been mentioned a number of times. So, yeah, it is that important that both guys win this one. It's an interesting one, it really is.
Yeah, that's how big the fight is. I mean, ultimately, I think you're right that this is a defining point for both of the boys.
Yeah.
You know, Liam Smith, for one. Liam Smith has obviously won a world title, and Chris Eubank Jr. has talked about winning world titles and not ever yet actually done it. Fought twice, got beaten both occasions. That's how big the fight is because in my view, you're right, it will determine whether Chris Eubank Jr. goes on and fights for a world title and whether Liam Smith has reached the end of his career. I think if Liam Smith were to lose, I think it's career defining. I think maybe not so much for Chris Eubank Jr., but maybe you'll disagree. But going to the fight itself, I think it's a real pick-em fight. I'm slightly worried about Liam Smith after the last fight. I spoke to Liam last week and he went, no, don't worry about that. There's a lot behind that and that particular fight, and I think we spoke to him as well.
Yeah.
But how do you see, given the two styles, given the fact that I'm not entirely sure that Chris Eubank Jr. has fought a live one for a while,
yeah.
How do you see this fight playing out? What do you think it's going to look like?
Well, it's interesting. We're speaking to Liam Smith in the week, actually. He was talking a lot about Chris Eubank's engine. You know, he feels that that's where his strengths are.
Make him work.
He's going to make him work. He says he's going to make him work from the off. Yeah. Now, this fight plays out, I think, tactically, who gets it right, who gets it wrong, wins the fight. Because I'm with you, Simon, actually. I think that it's a real 50-50. You know, it's a pick-em fight, and it could go split either way. I think it's that close. But I think it's tactically who gets it right on the night. I think if Eubank goes out there and engages early on, Liam Smith has got the engine to take him into the trenches in the later round. And listen, Eubank's got that DNA of his dad. He's tough. We know that. You know, he can tough it out. We saw that against the likes of George Groves, you know, when
he doesn't
when
work
really
3 minutes around, does he?
But he doesn't work 3 minutes around. And I think if he tactically gets it right, Eubank, and goes out there and boxes and moves around a lot, but then he's going to be using a lot of energy in doing that. Smith's going to be in his face the whole time. He's going to be making him work. I think this is dependent on what sort of engine Eubank Jr. turns up with. It really does. It's one of them fights I can see going either way. It really is. It's like, rarely do I like sitting on a fence when it comes to, you know, fights and that. But this fight, I can see both guys winning. But tactically, it's about who gets it right and who gets it wrong.
I think it's a great curtain raiser for 2023 in terms of big fights.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a real potential that this one could catch fire.
Yeah.
I've been watching the press stuff and I've been watching the various dialogue between the two fighters. And obviously, Chris Eubank Jr. has been trying to get into Liam's head, trying to talk to him about only needing to be at 50%. Chris Eubank Jr. needs to be at a damn sight more than 50%.
Listen, he needs to be at 110%, right? And Liam Smith is not stupid enough to engage in all that, right? So Eubank's main strengths, he plays the mind games. He plays the psychological games. He tries to get inside the fighter's head before the fight starts. And that's where he sort of wins a fight in a lot of cases, but Liam's too smart for that. He's not allowed to
do that with lesser fighters, can't
Absolutely.
I don't think he tried all that nonsense when he was fighting George Groves or when he was fighting Billy Joe Saunders, because they can operate on that level. They're actually bona fide world champions. And so was Liam Smith.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to get a rise out of Liam, is he?
He's not. He's talked about Liam sliding into his DMs on Instagram. He's tried to build it up. We've seen what that was all about. I spoke to Liam about it, and he said it was nothing to do with a fight or anything else. Again, he's just playing the mind game. So I think that's what Eubank does. That's one of his main strengths. Look, ultimately, I think Eubanks is going to come out. He's going to be trying to keep his distance. He's got Roy Jones back in his corner.
Yeah.
You know, and we know what he's going to bring to the table. But he is going to get drawn into a fight, and that's when we're going to see it. I think, you know, the last quarter of this fight are going to be tough for Eubank. It really is. And he's going to come down to the wire. It's one of those fights that can go either way. It really is.
Do you see it? Because I can't work out in my mind's eye how this one plays out. But do you see it about who bites down on the gum shield the most in the back end of the fight? Do you see it going 12 rounds, or do you see someone getting knocked out?
I don't see it who bites down on the gum shield in like when they get into the trenches in the back end of the fight, because I think that Liam Smith does that anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's about Eubank Jr. We know can do that, but it's just what he's got left in the engine when we get into that last quarter, because Smith's going to make him work hard from the off, because he knows that that's where Eubank's going to pick up the early rounds. How many of those early rounds can he pick up, and will it be a big enough lead before Smith comes back into it? That's what I'm saying. For me, it's a fight of two halves. I think Eubank picks up the early rounds, and I think Smith ultimately draws him into the trenches in the back end, and that's where the fight's going to get interesting.
Why do you think? I mean, I kind of know why Liam's taken the fight. Why do you think Eubank took Liam Smith? Do you think he took him on the basis of the last performance that he had? Because the previous fight, Jesse Vargas, right?
Yeah.
He looked good, Liam. The last fight, he didn't look good. And he got hit more often than I thought he would get hit, and the guy quit on the stall, and we couldn't quite work that out, could we?
Sure.
Do you think Eubank Jr., do we think, or you think, and then we can kick it around, he took this fight because he thinks that Liam Smith is on the last knockings he's running out?
You're only as good as your last fight, and I think it's a calculated gamble. I think that Eubanks who's well ranked by all the governing bodies, world title shot, knocking on the door for that. We know what happened with the Conor Benn fight. We'll get into that in a little bit. You know, that broke down. So Eubanks now gone from the pantomime villain to the sort of hero. Everyone's loving him. It's going to be weird to see the atmosphere when we get in there, actually, because I know that we're in Liam's backyard, like next door from where he comes from in Manchester. He's sold a phenomenal amount of tickets. But it's going to be interesting to see the reception that Eubank gets this one. And that may play a part in the fight as well.
Well, it's a strange one, because I don't really know why Chris Eubank would come out with any hero status, because he hadn't done anything. He was prepared to fight a fighter that was 2 weights beneath him. I know he had to come down, but notwithstanding, he was prepared to do that against a much more inexperienced fighter in Conor Benn.
Yeah.
It wasn't a fight that had anything other than a big bag of money at the end of it for either one of them.
Yeah.
And it was a fight that he was quite happy to take, even though he knew that Conor Benn had potentially failed a drugs test.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see why he'd suddenly get hero. And it's not because I got down on Chris Eubank Jr., because the more I listen to Chris Eubank Jr., you know, I've always sort of said to him, I know about you got to be in Manchester, Las Vegas. I know you want to fight Gennady Golovkin, but you never actually get on with fighting people. You pick fights that, you know, stylistically work for you, but actually don't advance you anywhere. But I think that it's going to be more for Liam Smith, because I think of the proximity of the event, albeit it's in Manchester rather than Liverpool. I still think there'll be a bigger affection for Liam Smith in the room.
I agree with that. It will be pro Liam Smith because of where it is situated in the country. I totally agree with that. But what I'm saying is Eubank over the last few months has won fans over. I think he's won fans over because of the situation. Whether that's right or whether that's wrong, you know, that's a debate to be had. It is what it is, but ultimately, I just think, listen, this is a great fight. I think it's a great fight, and I think it's a calculated gamble from Eubank. It's a box office fight. They're going to both get well paid. The winner gets a world title shot. The loser, for me, career over. And that's where I believe it is. Like Eubank, I know you said, like, definitely for Liam Smith, but for Eubank, he's no spring chicken now either. And I think that I'll tell you where we go with Eubank. If Eubanks loses, I see the fight with him and Conor materialising.
Absolutely.
That's where I see it happening.
We'll pick up on that in a second. But when you're looking at the fight now, let's just round this fight off, because, again, I want to emphasise the point, not because in any shape or form we're over-promoting it. I think it's going to be a brilliant fight. I think it's going to be a brilliant bill. I think some really interesting fights on that particular bill. But I think it's going to be an absolute barn burner. When you're looking at it, who wins this fight? You can't sit on the fence. We can't sit on the fence.
I'm not going to sit on the fence with this one. Who wins this fight? I think Smith may just scrape home. I think Smith may just do enough.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that you're right, but there's a part of me that thinks that Eubank has taken this fight for a reason.
Absolutely.
And that there is an outcome. There's a part of me, it sounds like my heart, but my heart thinks that Liam Smith is going to win, but my head tells me that somehow or another Eubank gets to win.
That's what I mean.
You think anyone gets knocked out?
I don't think no one gets knocked out.
No.
I really don't. I think it's going to go right down to the wire. It's one of those fights that I can see that both guys, so much on the line, that both guys, and they're both tough as well. They can get down in the trenches, and that's where I think it goes.
We are seeing them at a decent level in their careers, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're not seeing it like Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. Kell won the fight and legitimately won the fight, but we're seeing them at decent levels in their career. If we were getting the best versions, the very best versions of Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith in the ring, who would be the victor in the best versions? Liam Smith.
I think Liam Smith
when
would definitely start favourite.
Yeah, that's what
I think that Liam Smith would definitely start favourite.
Let's hope the bleeding fight lives up to the billing we've given it.
Well, I think it will. Listen, Simon, I think it will. Listen, we're not talking about two guys that are slightly past their best. I think they're both in great stages of their careers, and it's what's on the line for the winner and what's on the line for the loser that makes this one even more important to both guys. I think that they've both given it 110%. Forget that rubbish about Eubank 50% and all that. That's just the mind game stuff.
But we can't talk about Chris Eubank without bringing Conor Benn back into the equation. And there's been some comments attributed to Chris Eubank Jr. about his head tells him that, ultimately there should be an example made of Conor Benn. He's a drug cheat. His heart tells him that he's going to fight Conor Benn. What do you make to it? I mean, we've seen WBC Mauricio Sulaiman come out this week and turn around and say nothing's stopping him from fighting. He can fight. We're not doing anything about it. He's not suspended by us. We've obviously got this situation. We've torn up his British Boxing Board of Control licence, and Eddie Hearn is now advocating for him to fight. I can't quite get my head around that particular side of things. I don't particularly want to see this fight anymore. I didn't really want to see it in the first place for different reasons. I didn't want to see Conor getting in there. I thought there was no reason for Conor to be in that fight, besides getting paid a load of money about it. With all the dust that's settled, and we've both had strong views about it, and I think those views have been right to have, right? And people have got aerated with you, I know.
Yeah, of course.
But Conor Benn back in the conversation with Chris Eubank. You just said, I suppose you've answered the question. So, if he gets beat by Liam Smith, he takes the fight with Conor Benn. But if he beats Liam Smith, do you see this fight happening? Do you think it should happen? Do you want it to happen?
I think that if he beats Liam Smith, I think he goes on, and I think the fight that will materialise from that will be Triple G. After that fight, the fight then could happen. Listen, I see the fight happening somewhere down the line. I really do, and I think that's because of the history of the two. And I think it was a fantasy fight that no one believed was going to happen. Then all of a sudden it was presented to us, and all of a sudden you're going, hold on a minute, wow, it's a Eubank Benn thing. We're going back, we've moved forward 30 years, and it was an interest of everyone. But like you say, I think for the general public, you may have, but the general public were just like, they were hooked on it. And all of a sudden, as the fight was getting close, people were thinking, hold on a minute, this is quite interesting. This is now starting to level up a little bit.
Because I always thought it was a legacy fight. They're trading in the name of their fathers. But that is what it is. So, I personally don't care if I see it again. Do you think Conor Benn, I mean, again, we're talking about background noise. Do you think, I can't understand the WBC's position, but they're the ones, it's a VADA test for crying out loud. They're the ones that make their tests mandatory for being inside the top 15. Voluntary, mandatory.
Look, Conor went silent for 3 months, which is probably not the best thing to do, if I'm totally honest, because if you're trying to prove your innocence, don't just go silent for 3 months. Forget the legal side of things or whatever. But he done that. That was the route that he chose to do. Now we're starting to see him appear a little bit more. He said he's proved his innocence. We've still not seen that.
They've said they sent a 270-page report to the WBC. And I think their most compelling evidence is that we did UCAD tests at the same time as we did VADA tests. So how can one not have been contaminated? Their argument is contamination. But do you think, given the fact he's torn up his British Boxing Board of Control licence, do you think Conor Benn's going to get in the ring anytime soon?
I believe he will. I believe he will.
How do you feel about that?
Listen, it is what it is. Like, it's not for me to say how I feel about it. I think I've aired my views on this. I've aired my views on it, Simon, that people know the way that I feel about, certain situations. I don't think there's any place in the sport for drug cheats. That's the way that I feel. Not saying, listen, he's not he's not been proven guilty. Yeah. He's not been proven innocent. So as we speak, you know, it's just the way. Like he failed 2 tests, right? Yeah. Where we're at right now, he failed 2 tests, and that's all we've known. All we've heard Conor say is, "I've proved my innocence." He said that before Christmas. We're now in what? We're in January.
Well, he hasn't proven anything, right? But he's maintained.
He's maintained. Yeah. So. Until we hear his side of it, we can only go on the facts. And the facts are the 2 tests. So all of a sudden, I can't be taking backlash off certain parties close to Conor on the basis of what myself and yourself talk about, because I think this out of order.
I know this may not be particularly popular. I do want to see him back in the ring. I do want, whatever the situation is, if there's a consequence for his behaviour and he's found to be guilty, at this moment in time he's being judged without necessarily putting up a defence, right? We'll hear the defence at some point. The WBC don't seem to want to hear a defence. Yeah. But on that basis, we can't now laud and applaud Tyson Fury. We can't now laud and applaud Canelo Alvarez. We can't now have applauded Povetkin and let them have gone on to have their careers and not have Conor Benn have the same opportunity. So we'll see. Last part of this sort of this dialogue about the weekend's events, I think they've got a really good undercard up there. Be interesting to see Joe Parker back in the ring with one smack.
Yeah, listen, do you know what? That fight really, really intrigues me, because Joe Parker versus Jack Massey. Jack Massey is the former IBO cruiserweight champion, lost his belts outside of the ring, not in it, through, you know, political stuff that went on. I mean, the kid's had some amazing journey. He's like, you know, last year, him and his wife lost 2 children. And I'm thinking, where have you found the strength? He's still carried on. He wasn't earning any money over Christmas. He was been working as a scaffolder. All of a sudden, this opportunity's been presented to him. Now I'm going. Now, when someone has been through what he's been through, this opportunity's been presented to him. This evens the fight up a lot because of what happened with Parker in the Joe Joyce, where we was at that fight, and that was a systematic beating.
He was also dropped heavy, wasn't he, in that fight?
Yeah, very heavy. But it wasn't the fact that he was just knocked out in the 11th round. It was the punishment he took from the second round really onwards. Yeah. I mean, he showed incredible balls really to stay in there as long as he did.
I think it's more gain in there for Jack Massey than it is for Joe Parker.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a zero-sum game. Look, there's one other fight on there which I think is really intriguing, which is Richard Riakporhe. Yeah. I really want to see Richard, you know, move through the gears now and get a shot at Lawrence Okoli.
Yeah, good opponent. Good opponent in Glowacki. Glowacki's a tough guy. You know, just recently lost to Lawrence Okoli, former world champion, was considered one of the best cruiserweights in the world at a time, and he's at that stage of his career where, yes, Riakporhe starts firm favourite, but Glowacki, you just go, he may have that one performance in there, so it's a good fight. It's a good fight.
Looking forward to it. Right, Spence, it wouldn't be a new year without starting it talking about Anthony Joshua. Yeah. Obviously, a lot's been said about where he is, what he's doing, where he's going. We've seen Eddie Hearn start to talk about the schedule for him and where Anthony Joshua's going to go. 3 fights this year, apparently. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about whether you think he can make 3 fights. Jermaine Franklin.
Yeah.
Dillian Whyte. So 2 guys that have just recently fought.
Yeah.
And a 3rd fight by the end of the year. And potentially the debate, is this the biggest year in Anthony Joshua's boxing career, because it defines whether he's got a place at the top table anymore or not.
I think it defines whether he's got a place in the sport anymore, if I'm totally honest, because I think where he's at, Anthony Joshua, you know, former 2-time world champion, it's the most important year of his career, because if he gets it wrong this year and he's no longer the cash cow, I'm not sure what sort of motivation he'll have moving forward. I think that he needs the 3 fights this year. I know they talked about 3 fights, and a lot of people are doubting that. He needs those fights. Jermaine Franklin's a worthy opponent. He pushed Dillian Whyte to the wire. A lot of people felt that he actually beat Dillian Whyte. He was pretty much an unknown quantity before that. So it's a decent opponent to come back with. Dillian Whyte is a fight that we'd always intrigued to see, because I think that every fighter has his bogeyman, and for Anthony Joshua, I think Dillian Whyte's his.
But the tragedy for Anthony is that we saw Dillian Whyte. If we're going to make an argument, and you will probably make this argument, that there's a place at the top table for Joshua, right? You're going to make this argument, aren't you? Yeah. Right? You're going to say, I'm going to reserve that judgment a little bit. But how are you going to make a case for Anthony Joshua to fight people like Dillian Whyte and say that potentially Dillian Whyte's a nemesis when he got his backside handed to him by Tyson Fury, and then advocate for Anthony Joshua to be back at the top table again? Because none of these fights, I make it right,
Yeah.
that there's tune-up fights. I make it right that there's psychological, there's fights that give him a psychological boost to get him back in there because he's gotten beaten twice in his last 2 fights. But these opponents, to me, don't give us any indication, and Dillian Whyte looks like a spent force now, that Anthony Joshua is going to be anywhere near doing anything besides printing some more money for the Anthony Joshua Express.
Well, I think this is where I'm sat with this. So I think that obviously Anthony Joshua has had a missing piece of the jigsaw, and that is the trainer. He's been struggling to find the right trainer. He's took himself over to America. Derek James now is going to be the trainer to train Anthony Joshua, works with the likes of Errol Spence. He can add a lot to Joshua. Joshua's one of those guys that's like a sponge. He soaks everything up, but if something's not quite right or something's missing, he's not mentally the strongest, I don't think. And I think that Derek James is going to add that piece to him.
How do you square that circle? He soaks everything up. Right?
Yeah.
You and I both know that before a fight against Usyk, he's in the dressing room asking another leading trainer what he should do in this fight.
Yeah, because that's clearly... That's
not soaking something up,
No, that's clearly him not being happy where he was. And I think that's, until he finds peace, until he gets the team that he needs, he's got big problems, Joshua, because I think psychologically he's damaged. And we all know that. We've seen that in his performances. And he needs that confidence. So you've got to give him the Jermaine Franklin and the Dillian Whyte fight. And if that installs the confidence that he needs, I believe he can compete again at top level.
You don't believe, and neither do I, that Rob McCracken told him to go in and box Alexander Usyk, do you? Do you believe do you believe in the first fight that McCracken said the best way to win this fight is going...
No, but you know what, Simon? Did you listen to the corner in that and the instructions he was getting? We're in round 9, right? I'm there, I'm looking, and I'm screaming from ringside, throw everything in the kitchen sink it in, mate. You've got to roll the dice, go for it. Knock him out or get knocked out. But it was too calm in the corner. It was too calm in the corner. Like, he needed someone to slap him around the face, kick him up the arse and get him back out there and go, but my point, you've got to do that. But
the cul-de-sac I was trying to lead you into was, if he's not going to listen to trainers, then you're not going to get him to a point where he's going to be able to adjust. And I would say that against Usyk, he didn't listen to McCracken. He wanted to fight that wanted to fight the way he wanted to fight. And I'm not entirely sure that he listened to his corner all the way through in the second fight against Usyk.
Listen, I think this is the long and short of it, really. If Anthony Joshua doesn't listen to his trainers and doesn't listen to his instructions, he won't reach the top flight.
Old dogs and new tricks, though, isn't it? I mean, you wonder how much he's listened to in previous times because he just walked through everybody. But this is the thing, right? That is when the kid had not had that psychological damage. He hadn't been knocked out before, and that's where he was at his best, where he was like, he fought with his heart on his sleeve, and he threw everything at it, and he went in there, and it was like knock out or get knocked out. From the Klitschko fight, when he got knocked down quite heavily and everything else, I think the damage was starting to be done. And look, we'll have to see how it happens, how it goes with this new trainer. Is there a danger? I wonder if there's a danger that that he's getting left behind a little bit because more people are talking about what Tyson Fury's going to do and what Alexander Usyk's going to do, and possibly what Joe Joyce is going to do.
Absolutely.
Rather than they're talking about Anthony Joshua. Why is it taking so long? I mean, I realise he got beat in September, and I was in the same place as you. I know we were all getting excited and all our knickers in a twist about him fighting Tyson Fury in December, but I never thought that was right for him to do anyway. I thought that was Tyson Fury giving him the hurry up to get him at his worst case. And there's no reason for Anthony Joshua to take that fight rather than thinking he's never going to get another opportunity.
Yeah.
But why have we got to wait until April for him to be out fighting when really and truly, if you're fighting in April, it's going to be very difficult. It depends upon the type. If he goes into a difficult fight, and given what Franklin did with Dillian Whyte, it might be a difficult fight.
Yeah.
Then we're going to have to listen to the backstory of how he was going to need another 3 months or 4 months to get out again. And if that's a difficult fight, if it's Dillian Whyte's, we're not going to see him fight 3 times this year. Why are we waiting until April?
I think we need to see him fight 3 times this year.
I think we need to, but how are we going to achieve that?
Yeah, well, because he's going to have to get out in April. He's going to have to get out again at the back end of the summer, and he's going to have to get out again in December. He needs those fights. Like you say, Simon, if he wants to keep up with those top tier of fighters or put himself back in the position to be worthy of fighting for a world title, because he's not there right now.
Yeah.
He's not there right now. We all know that, and we know that, he's damaged goods as we speak. But for him to get back there, he has to do that. 2023 is the most important year of Anthony Joshua's career because it's make or break. It's as simple as that. It's make or break.
Do you think these opponents... I mean, I don't think... I'm not again, it sounds like I'm being a bit negative, but I was so disappointed with Dillian Whyte in the fight against.
But you know what?
Fury.
He's still ranked. What is he, 6 or 7 in the world?
I know, but being the best of a bad bunch isn't particularly much to admire,
No,
is it? But I'm looking at it saying, do you think? I mean, I would prefer, and maybe I think more of a statement fight is going in there and fighting Otto Wallin and knocking Otto Wallin out and going, "Well, see, Fury, you couldn't do that."
Yeah,
I see that as more of a statement fight than picking fighters. He looks at Franklin and thinks, "Okay, you were against a slightly diminished and maybe lacking a little bit of confidence and maybe taking it a bit too casually, Dillian Whyte." And so he's made you look better than you actually are.
Yeah.
So on paper, I'll go in there and clean the floor with you.
Yeah.
In the thinking of Anthony Joshua, you tell me as a fighter if I'm thinking the wrong way.
No. So I think where we're at with it, I think Otto Wallin was a front runner for a while, and I think that was the reasons behind it because of the fight that he had with Tyson Fury, and he cut Fury's eye, pushed him, made it a hard fight for Fury. So that was the right sort of opponent for him. Now they've switched to Jermaine Franklin, which equally is a right fight because people have watched that fight with Dillian Whyte, but then you go on about the Dillian Whyte fight against Tyson Fury, and is he starting to deteriorate? Is he going downhill? Looking at the fight against Franklin, you would say yes. So Anthony Joshua may be just picking up with someone that may make the performance look better than it is. But look, I think ultimately it's all about getting Anthony Joshua back on the winning streak. Yeah. Jermaine Franklin, Otto Wallin, that they're level sort of opponents,
I suppose the
and they're recognised to the British public.
I suppose the bottom line is we wanted to piss or get off the pot, don't we, and get on with fighting.
Absolutely.
Last part of the equation in this particular scenario of Anthony Joshua that we find ourselves inevitably having to talk about is Eddie Hearn is talking about there has to be a fight between him and Tyson Fury. Yeah, this has to be part and parcel of both of their careers. Do you think that's going to happen? Can you see? I mean, I can see how they get paid, but can you see there's going to be a point where there's an inevitability that Anthony Joshua's done enough, Tyson Fury's come through, wherever he's come through, with these two actually fight? Yeah. Not fight just for a bag of money, but fight for something meaningful, the marbles.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. And Fury
not in 23, though. Fury, in 23?
No, I don't think it'll happen in 23. I know Eddie's talking about possibly Wilder or Fury in the third fight. I don't think that will happen in 23. I can see it happening in 24. The reason I see it happening is because I know that Tyson Fury, I know the way he thinks. He wants to be the best of the modern era, and there's always going to be that debate if he doesn't box Anthony Joshua. I think that's a fight that has to happen so that he can go, right, well, I've cleaned up the modern era. I'm a modern day great. I'm an all-time great. And that's where it is. And I think that's where, that's why I think that fight happens. Also because Joshua needs that fight much more than Tyson Fury. So when that fight, Fury will want that for those reasons I've just said, and Joshua will take it because it's an opportunity for him to get back to the top.
Well, I suppose the overriding message from us is, hey, Jay, get your balls out of your handbag and let's get on with
Absolutely,
the fight,
let's do it. 2023's got to be a big year for him.
Spence, I'm being dragged kicking and screaming into this subject by an irritating producer.
I think I know where you're going with this, mate.
About what he thinks we should be talking about. And one of the subjects that I loathe, don't want to talk about, want to spend as little time talking about as I possibly can. Yeah. And seems to be one that you're getting more and more enthusiastic about. You're getting paid somewhere. YouTube boxing. There was an event on Saturday night. You even got that old fart Jim White involved.
Yes. Right? Yeah.
Tell me, is it getting any better? Was it chaos? Is it crap? Does it continue to be crap? Should I open my eyes? Should I look at it differently? No.
It's
okay,
boxing.
Let's change subjects.
It's boxing / WWE. It's entertainment, right? And I think
it's opiate for the masses.
It's entertainment. Like I've got to say, right, as a spectacle, as an event, it was insane. It was incredible. You go there was 13,000 people in their seats in Wembley at 7 o'clock at the start of the first fight. They was there. The atmosphere was electric. Yeah, a lot of them were. Yeah, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. It was a carnival atmosphere. The demographic of the crowd
full of clowns.
Was totally different. Totally different. Now it was parents with their kids there and whatnot. It's something totally different. I think people are getting mixed up with this crossover, and the reason they're doing that is because the YouTubers are screaming at you, Jake Paul's going, where's Canelo? They're doing it for numbers, nothing else.
Yeah, I know.
And it's getting under people's skin.
Because it's denigrating boxing.
Yeah.
Right. If we were able to pigeonhole it and say, right, it's over there, but they don't want that. What they want to do is they want to get paid off the back of their stupid clicks, right?
Boxers,
they want to pretend they're professional, but they want to call out elite guys. The tragedy is we get people like Floyd Mayweather getting involved and giving it legitimacy.
That's the problem.
Right? But at this point, the argument, I don't buy this argument. I won't buy this argument, and you ain't going to be able to sell it to me, that this is the next set of eyes on the prize. These guys that are watching, they're going to be the ones that morph into the next set of fight aficionados, people being involved in the fight game from a viewing point of view. I don't see that. So I just think it's a sideshow. It is what it is.
So I had a conversation with KSI on Wednesday.
A meeting of the minds.
On Wednesday, talking about his involvement in boxing. How did he get there? He said, listen, you know why I got into boxing? I was drinking too much. No, I was drinking too much. I was going, and I went to the gym to train, found that actually I loved the sport. Then one thing led to another. All of a sudden, he'd done a white collar fight with Joe Weller. Then he done with Logan Paul. Then he went, and it went further and further. And he says, now I don't drink at all. He said, like, it's really good. He said, but what I do recognise is that I've got millions of kids that follow me. And what I do is influential to those kids. He said, and boxing is, boxing's one of those sports that teaches life skills. He said, so if by me doing this gets loads of kids going to the boxing gyms and some of them find hidden talents that they didn't know they had, he said, I think I'm winning. I couldn't disagree with that. I went, well, you know what? Fair play. I think the thing that really irritates people is that these YouTubers calling out these names in the boxing and everything else, they should keep it separate. It's not boxing, it's entertainment that with a little bit of boxing involved, like the undercard was good fun, but if you look at the undercard, take Jake Paul, Logan Paul and KSI out of the equation, who them three can fight a little bit, they're not too bad. Take those out of the equation, the others are terrible, right? And they don't, and the problem, and that's where you got the problem, I think, that boxers are screaming about these kids getting paid, whatever. It's a business, man. They're doing what they're doing, and people that turn up to go there, will any of them go to a boxing match? Probably not.
You're right. I mean, I suppose you're right. As much as I don't want to agree with you, it's the characterisation of it. It's the fact that they're being allowed to piggyback off the back of boxing, legitimise what they're doing, and it's choreographed in my view. It's choreographed to be able, not choreographed in the same way that WWE is, because obviously someone can still get hurt, and get a dig in YouTube boxing. But I'm disappointed that you're finding yourself so heavily invested in it.
I think you're selling your
soul. I think you're seeing an opportunity for yourself.
I'm not heavily invested in it. See, that's where you're wrong. That's where you're totally wrong, because I go there open-minded and I enjoy it. It's entertainment. I go, do you know what? When I left
Simple-minded, when I
left there, wait,
feeble-minded. How about feeble-minded?
Let me finish. I left there, right, and I was like, do you know what? That was a good night. It was fun. It was fun. I took it for what it was. I'm not there looking at it and going, well, what are these guys doing about boxing? It's not about that. This is their entertainment. This is, all right, they're monetising it. And I know a lot of people are getting annoyed about that, and I totally understand it. I do understand it. But these kids they're smart kids. They're intelligent. They're doing it. And the other one, I must mention, because this is the argument that always comes up is, this is the classic that you hear. Well, what if someone gets hurt in there? Until someone gets hurt, I go, well, listen, white collar boxing's happened for a long time.
Invested in this subject, Spence.
I'm not.
You're right across this, doubling down, making your point.
I'm not. No
skin in the game for Spence here.
This is all I hear, and I'm going,
you little toad.
Listen, one thing I'm not doing is getting paid. The only thing I get paid for, mate, is commentating on talkSPORT. And by the way, I spoke to Catherine and she told me the numbers were insane that we done on there. So it works. Do you know what I'm saying? So
the only thing I don't like is, listen, I can understand what you're saying, and if the backstory is now being remorphed into by.
So now I've talked you into.
No, you haven't.
By the way, just quickly, there was a mystery opponent on there that was fighting Dave B or something. Mystery opponent. I thought that was actually you. I thought it was you or the little man. Because there was another little guy that was going to be fighting.
I've been doing this boxing.
He's this big. It was either him or you.
But I actually went in the gym yesterday, did some boxing again. I was blowing out my arse, so I wouldn't be a mystery man in anything, right?
But I didn't know, because you've kept your cards close to your chest about this whole boxing thing.
Absolutely.
I ask you how it's going. You don't give me any information. I've asked, can I come down and help you out, train you? Don't want any part of me.
But I don't consider help and Spencer in the same breath. I don't think they correlate. But anyway, listen, Spence, I am in the camp of not wanting to hear about it. I don't believe that the backstory that they're coming forward with, which is all we're doing it to help the next generation of kids, we're a good example. You're doing it because you get paid. And that's the bottom line. And if you're morphing your backstory and now KSI to actually, I'm a positive influence. I don't know, some of the things that come out of your mouth aren't always positive. But look, the bottom line is what it is. I think we're going to agree to disagree. We're going to come round to the conclusion in the end that I'm right and you're wrong. But we'll move on. Right, so that's it for episode 9 of Talk Boxing with myself and Spencer. Now, don't forget to keep liking and subscribing, you weasels, because not enough of you subscribing and we expect more from you. Now, of course, keep leaving your questions in the comment section below so that we can answer them fully and emphatically on our new show on Thursdays. Myself and Spencer will look forward to seeing you next week on Talk Boxing.